Exercise is boring. So I built video game controllers into exercise machines. Here's how I did it. This is the Microsoft Adaptive Controller. You can get it on the Microsoft website. It's basically a wireless video game controller for the Xbox or PC. You can press these buttons on it, or you can wire in your own buttons on the top. Most of the buttons would just be this, just a mono plug. I plugged it in, so if I press the A button, the Xbox recognizes it. Basically any 2-wire button that releases when you let it go, which is called momentary button, will work. They're all over Amazon. There's no way to get the wires wrong. If I switched the green and blue wire, it wouldn't make a difference. Sometimes these buttons are really huge though, so be careful if you're ordering it off of Amazon. It might be 1.5 inches wide. Unless you're building a big arcade cabinet, you don't need a button that big. For the left and right trigger, it's a little more complicated because the input is analog, not digital. You need to use a 4-pin audio jack. The intent with the analog is that you can create like a gas pedal where you can go faster or slower in the game based on how hard you press the lever or the trigger or whatever you have wired to it. It's really hard to find those analog inputs. So what I used instead was a special type of button called a single pull double throw. Basically, it uses one of 2 signals based on whether you're pressing the button or not. And I have it wired to ground and high. So it's either max speed or no speed at all, based on whether it's pressed or not pressed. So it wouldn't work as a throttle in a game, but most games don't need it. You don't have to worry about destroying this thing. If you accidentally connect things wrong, it's not gonna fry it. Lastly, you have the thumbsticks. This is basically a combination of a button that clicks and the X and Y axis. Again, you're using the 4-channel audio plug, but this time you're actually using all 4 channels. One of the lines is the X-axis analog input, one's the Y-axis, and then you've got power and ground. The same ground here is run through a splitter here to connect to both inputs. If up, down, or left, right is reversed, no matter which way you move this, then you probably have them reversed in the connector here. You don't have to worry about destroying this thing. If you accidentally connect things wrong, it's not gonna fry it. For buttons, you can either use spade connectors like this or solder them. If you're using like the rowing machine and the controller is moving, it's probably better to solder. For the audio jacks that plug into the Xbox controller, you can use these screw terminal ones. You can also get audio jacks that solder the wires inside the plastic coating. I found the soldering to be very small and hard to do, especially for the 4-pin ones. You can connect all of the grounds together to run one ground to the controller, which is what I do here. As far as a gauge of wire, anything between 22 and 26 gauge. I prefer 22 gauge. 26 is a little thin, a little hard to work with, hard to get it to stay in the screw terminals. You might need to use thinner wire like 26 gauge if you're soldering these 4-pin connectors to fit the wire inside the plastic casing.